Portions of KDKR's daily programming do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, when do you replace your tires? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Tony Joe's here with me like he is every Friday to take your Car Corner questions. Number to call today is 1-877-913-5357. 1-877-913-5357. You can also go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com, and there's a site called the Ask Bob site. Just send your question in, and I will get you taken care of. That is all at the website, prudentmoney.com. 1-877-913-5357. Well, Tony Joe, I know that your hobby is the weather, and you love watching it, and you love talking about it. Of course, you don't love by any chance what has happened in the state of Florida. I mean, that's just can't put my mind around what has happened. I mean, the amount of destruction and the amount of years that that they'll need for it to come back, and it won't even come back as it was, come back in a new form. But I saw, and we want to throw this out here to the listeners. Obviously, we won't be talking about this the entire show. Well, one of the interesting things, I saw this on social media, and I was telling Tony Joe, I've not seen this at all in a Google search or anything, but this guy was standing outside of his house, and he said that all the water, as far as he could see, obviously not all the water, but he said you could see a half mile to a mile down of the Gulf of Mexico. The water had left the Gulf, and I mean, you can see it on camera.
Right. Well, let me just tell you, I don't have an answer for that. There's a lot of things. You just showed it to me when I came in today, and I don't have any. There's a couple of questions I'd like to know, but I will tell you, if you're not aware of this, that it's not unnatural, I wouldn't think, and I'll explain that in a minute. But, you know, Bob, hurricanes are a low-pressure weather system. Low pressure, meaning in the center of the storm, there's very low pressure. So low pressure actually will lift the water from the ocean up because there's less gravity. It's lower pressure. So if the pressure is the same on the Gulf of Mexico, except for this one center portion of the hurricane, then it will draw the water uphill into the hurricane, thereby retracting or receding that particular shoreline or wherever it's drawing, wherever the position of the hurricane happens to be. The people that may not realize or don't know, that's how the waves and the high tides and that's how the tide occurs. It's gravity. Think about this. It's gravity from the moon that causes the tides. It pulls the ocean water up in the middle of the ocean and then lets go of it. So that's how you get the tides. So a local system with very low pressure would pull the water up. Now, what you showed me was this guy in his backyard. I would be very curious, is the water back now? It should be back now. I mean, we don't know that. We didn't have any time to answer any questions or ask anything. But
so if anybody's heard about this, because I still can't believe there's a lot of things that have happened, traumatic things that have happened that you're just not really seeing any news coverage on. Give us a call, 1-877-913-5357. Obviously, we've got things to talk about, but this was just
pretty cool.
Sometimes you see things that blow your mind, and that was it for me.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool if the water's still gone, the missing water. Yeah, that's weird if it's still gone.
Gosh. Yeah, there's man.
I mean, don't look at me. I didn't take it. I'm just letting you know.
Let me ask you a question. Was it my yeah? That was funny, Tony Joe. So what was it? My imagination, or were they pretty much forecasting for the longest of time? When I say longest of time, I mean Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, that this thing was going to crank down to a Category 1 before it even hit. And then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, it's hitting at a Category 4 because I guess the cool waters didn't slow it down.
No, it was predicted to come in as a Cat 3.
I saw it predicted as a Cat 1 there for the longest time, and I just wonder if people blew it off and thought, this is not going to be that big of a deal.
Well, now, are you talking about it hitting the coast of South Carolina right now?
No, I'm talking
okay.
about
last week. Yeah,
yeah.
This was well forecasted, very pinpointed as well. It came in a little south of Fort Myers, but I mean, it came in at Fort Myers, a little south of Tampa Bay, but there was plenty of warning, plenty of time to prepare for this storm, and that's what I like about the technology of weather forecasting now is the amount of time you have ahead of time. You can't do that often. You can't do that with a tornado, but you can do that with large-scale hurricanes, especially Category 3, 4, and 5 hurricanes. It's very dangerous, very devastating, as we've witnessed. But gosh, there was lots of time, and the accuracy was pretty consistent. And I think that you should just take it seriously. Everybody should.
Oh, definitely. That's and the last thing I'll say about this. You remember back when they were forecasting a 4 or 5, I think it was a 4 or 5 hurricane hit Houston, the Gulf of Mexico, right around that area, and they had everybody leaving Houston, and there was these big. You're stuck on the highway for forever.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Yep.
And then it barely even nothing hit. And so it makes me wonder the next time that happens, people are going to go, oh, well, I'm not going to spend all this time and energy and money and leave when I don't have to.
Right.
I hope that doesn't happen.
That's the problem is one time that it doesn't play out the way it's supposed to, and you think it's not going to the next time either. And that's what's really scary and tragic about staying when you are, should evacuate.
1-877-913-5357. So let's talk about something else that you looked at me like, that doesn't really happen at this time of the year. You know when it gets cold, you all of a sudden start to lose. You wake up in the morning, you turn your car on, and your tire indicators say that you've lost air pressure, that you need to put some air in your tires. Well, I know obviously it's not that. It's turned cool in the evenings. But that is what's happened to me. That happened to me this morning, or actually a couple of days ago. I just got it taken care of today. But there was a loss of air pressure. And then Alyssa, my assistant, said the same thing has happened to me as well. So I go to Discount Tire where they have a drive, and this is not advertising Discount Tire, by the way. We are on Nonprofit Radio. Mm-hmm. They do offer a great free service. You can drive in, and they will bring your tire pressure up to where it's supposed to be. But there was literally 10 cars in a line waiting to do that.
Mm-hmm. And
so I thought, well, number one, explain to us what's going on with when a tire loses air pressure. But the thing that I thought it had to be colder than it is for that to really happen.
Yes, I would think it would have to get a little bit colder than it was. But like you were telling me, there was 10 cars in line. You weren't the only one. I think what we're experiencing is the advanced technology we have with the ability to read tire pressure from the dashboard.
Oh, good point.
Before, we never could do that. Now, let me just say this. The basic theory is this. When cold air surrounds your car, when it gets colder at night, the air inside the tires contract. The molecules of air get closer together. So the pressure goes down a little bit. Now, when you drive the car, you experience low tire pressure from the monitors on your tires. Well, So you say, well, I got to go get air in my tires. So you go get air in the tires. You bring them back up to 32 or 28 or 30, whatever the desired the pressure is. Now, here's the thing that happens. When the weather warms back up, your tires may be overinflated a little bit. When you simply drive the car for a number of highway miles specifically, let's say you're going to Waco or Houston or Austin or something, the air pressure expands inside the tire due to the heat from you contacting the road surface at 70 miles an hour. So you get the tires adjusted on a cooler morning, that's fine, nothing wrong with it. But then when you experience different conditions with the car all day long, or if the weather warms up a little bit and the sun comes out, you see the air's going to expand again. We never had the ability to monitor tire pressure before. Now we do have that ability, and we notice it every little PSI that goes up and down. Our tires are low, our tires are high. You know what? I say, don't get nervous over a couple of pounds here and there, because it's going to change with the weather and the road conditions and the amount of driving you're doing. If it really gets cold, like in the winter, yeah, that's time for a tire pressure adjustment. But if it's just a couple of pounds either way, I wouldn't get too nervous about it, because you could spend half your life adjusting your tire pressure over every little temperature change that we have this time of the year. It gets cool at night. It gets warm during the day. It's going to happen. So what? Let it, I wouldn't worry as much as some folks might worry about a situation like that.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Number to call if you want to, if you got a question for Tony Joe, you want to call in. The number to call is 1-877-913-5357. This is Bob Brooks. We're up against the break. Stick around. We will be right back.
The Word for Today is excited to announce the new official online home for the ministry of Pastor Chuck Smith and Kay Smith, pastorchuck.org. At pastorchuck.org, you'll have instant access to thousands of hours of verse-by-verse teaching by Pastor Chuck Smith from Genesis through Revelation, and full access to special messages on subjects such as prophecy and much, much more. Also at pastorchuck.org, a full library of great teachings by Kay Smith, and a section where you can read some of Pastor Chuck's books online, all free of charge. So visit the new official online home of the Word for Today and the ministry of Pastor Chuck and Kay Smith, pastorchuck.org.
Something good is about to happen. Bill Gaither and the Gaither Vocal Band are coming to Southlake at White's Chapel Thursday, October 13th. Get ready for legendary harmonies, laughter, and encouragement, all in one unforgettable night. Thursday, October 13th. Featuring special guests Lady Love Smith, Kevin Williams, and Gene McDonald. Coming to White's Chapel Thursday, October 13th. Tickets available now at Gaither.com. Sponsored by Phil McGabb Concerts, a premier production.
We'll sometimes say that's like heaven on earth, just an expression. But this week on A New Beginning, Pastor Greg Laurie points out how unlike earth, heaven will be. We'll take a tour of our eternal home based solely on the insights God provides in His Word. Join us this week on A New Beginning with Pastor Greg Laurie.
Weekday mornings at 7:30 on 91.3 KDKR.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. 1-877-913-5357. I just got to say really quick, we watched the follow-up video during the break, and the water is back. Okay, so what just blew me away is now no longer an interesting story. Okay, so let me ask you a question. You overfill your tires with air by mistake or whatever. What ends up happening with that? Is it, do they wear out sooner? Do you cause different risks to potentially occur?
Certainly. You can think of it like this. I got to paint a visual, in your mind, you think of the bottom of the tire and the top of the road surface, right where the two come together. You want to keep them as flat as possible so that as much of the tire touches the road surface as possible. So if you take the extreme and just think about this, if you pumped 60 pounds of air into your tire that was only supposed to require 30, what would happen is, Bob, the sides of the edges of the tire would lift up off the road surface, and only the very center of the tire would be contacting the road
Makes
surface.
sense.
So if you continue to drive that way, it's going to wear the middle treads out, but the side treads are going to be great. But you still have to throw the tire away because, you can't have any portion of the tread bad. I mean, it's all got to be good, or it's all going to have to go in the garbage. So just look at the opposite situation. If you had low tire pressure, you would keep basically the two outer edges of the tire would contact the road surface more than the center would, because there's not enough pressure pushing down to keep everything flat along the bottom edge of the tire. This would then wear out the two outer edges of the treads, yet the center portion would be great. So it would be just the opposite of overinflation. In either case, it's both bad conditions for either situation, because you're going to wear the tire out prematurely, not get your money's worth out of the tire, and it's going to be unsafe to drive in either situation. If you've got too much air in the tire, not enough treads touching the ground, you could lose control a lot easier. And especially in water, by the way, especially if it's in a lot of heavy rain. And then underinflating, you're going to wear the two outside edges out. The center won't have enough pressure pushing down. So the same thing goes there. You're going to start to get the tire hot. It's going to start expanding the steel belts inside that tire, and they're going to start to eventually come through the tire, giving you a very bad situation for things like blowouts and stuff like that. And you're also going to wear the tire out faster. So either condition is not good. You want to keep the tires properly inflated, but a couple of pounds either way on weather changes is not something that you need to over-concern yourself with.
1-877-913-5357 is the number to call. If you got a question for Tony Joe, we'd love to hear from you today. 1-877-913-5357. Tires are one of those things that you just grimace every time you think about it. You got to replace a set, because you spend some real money doing that, and you don't get anything out of it.
Right. There's no satisfaction.
No satisfaction.
Doesn't run any better.
No, it might make you feel better that you may have a smoother ride.
And by the way, not to interrupt you, but
sure,
the higher fuel oil goes, the more tires are going to cost, because they're petroleum products.
Good point. So we've talked about this in the past, but I think it's worth bringing up again. Obviously, is that there's that you can go to a tire website of a couple of major brands out there where they carry all the different brands of tires, and you can get overwhelmed with the number of tires and prices that you could end up buying. One of the things you've pointed out is that people tend to gravitate a little bit because they name recognition of the brand name tires, but you really pay for them. I mean, they're expensive. What about these tires maybe that you haven't really heard of before, like maybe a Yokohama, which is a huge tire distributor? And you were saying that some of these tires off of these off-brand names are actually produced by name brand tire companies.
That's exactly right. There's only a handful of tire manufacturing companies in the world. There's the big names that everybody recognizes, and oftentimes what they'll do is they'll run so many per volume, per order tires and put a different name on them for some wholesale distributor in a state or a region somewhere else in the country. So you got to think of it like this. You know, when your brand name is Michelin, you're paying, part of that is paying for the advertising. It's a good name, it's a trusted name in the business. But that same tire company does make some of these off-brand names that you're not so familiar with. The tire is just as good. It's made by the same company. The DOT, the Department of Transportation in any state, has certain criteria that has to be met before a tire can be sold on the open market anyway. So there's a lot of things to consider about buying the name brand expensive tires and then doing a little research and looking at the off-brand tires, which are considerably cheaper in a lot of cases, and then you making up your own mind. We don't want to sway anybody's opinion, but that's just a little thing that you could look into because it happens in a lot of industries.
So let me ask you a question. You're choosing between two different tires. So let's say the most expensive one is a Michelin, just pulling that out of the air.
Okay.
And then there is, at the bottom of the price spectrum, there is ABC tire. Is Michelin that much better than an ABC tire from the standpoint of the difference that you're paying in price for it?
I don't think it's that much better. There are...
I mean, is there anything you can do to a tire? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, not really. And if you could do something to a tire, think of it like this. If you could do something to a tire, like cheapen the rubber or cheapen the steel or cheapen something inside the tire, remember the Department of Transportation is an authority figure for each state, and they have certain requirements that have to be met. So it's not like you're going to buy a cheaper tire and have 4 blowouts. I mean, it's not like that. There has to be standards for safety that are met before the tire can even be sold. So I think they just run different brand names for different tire companies who are in the business of making a profit. They're going to buy them at a certain price, and they're going to sell them at a certain price. And it's not that there's any big mystery to it. You drive around, let's say ABC Tire, let's use that example. Drive around this whole country, all 50 states, and see if you can find a tire manufacturer plant that has ABC Tire Company. You're not going to find one. Where does the tire come from for ABC Tire Company? It comes from one of the big boys in the business, and there's only a handful of those. So you might just do a little bit of research before you purchase your next set of tires and realize that you can probably do a lot better in price without worrying so much about quality.
Yeah, the other thing, too, that's really really great about the Internet is that you can go and you can read about all the experiences that people have had with these tires and
True.
The ratings.
Yeah,
and,
that's true. You can go review. Yep.
But I just know that through the years, because I will tend to buy off-brand tires, and I have never really felt
I usually buy off-brand tires, too.
Like, I just hate buying tires.
Yeah. I buy off-brand tires. It's like, usually you're given 3 prices, the very best, top of the line, the mid-grade, and then a cheaper tire. And people tend to kind of be embarrassed to buy the cheaper tire, but they can't afford the most expensive top-of-the-line Michelin, so they settle for the middle of the road. And that's usually the one in marketing a tire and prices. That's usually the one they're making the most profit on, conveniently. So nothing really wrong with that. Business is business, but keep in mind, don't be embarrassed to buy the cheaper tire because oftentimes it's as good of a quality tire as the mid-grade one and probably as good a grade as the top one. It's just paying for the difference in advertising.
You know what's interesting is that I heard a friend of mine, I think it was a Mercedes that he had bought, and he bought that tire warranty when he bought the car. And he would come to find out that they were putting this old supply of these brand new tires, but they were models from 2 to 3 years ago as replacements on this car because they were under warranty and he had a problem with them.
Yeah, well, See, that's another thing I want to point out real quick. I know we're getting short.
Yeah, we
on
got
time,
about
but
20 seconds.
Here's the thing, Bob. The Department of Transportation won't even allow a certain age tire to be used anymore, even if it's brand new in the warehouse. If it's outdated, you can no longer use it.
Yeah, and of course, I guess that means you don't really see anything for retreads anymore either.
No.
Did I say that right?
Retreads, yeah, you don't see them. Not
Yeah.
for cars. You don't want to use retreads.
It's a good thing that they have regulations. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.